Hey, where are my nappers at? Anybody listening? You like to nap? You need to nap? Today was one of those days where every little thing that could go wrong did go wrong, and it wasn't a big deal, but I found myself just having like some freakouts because that never happens to moms and this day and age with all the things we have going on, right? Uh, and I pulled into my garage after work and I took a little 20. I took a little 20-minute nap and suddenly I have a new perspective. Does that ever happen to anybody? And it reminded me of the time before my daughter could drive her little self to practice. And I would drive her to practice, and I would actually sometimes sit in my car for 2 hours, and that was, like, my time, and I would nap, and I would listen to the music that I liked, and I would read, and then I realized, like, that's where the magic happens, is in my car. We're always on the go, as cheer moms, and there's really no point other than, like, can anyone else relate? Like I just needed a hot minute to take a little nap and now I feel so much better and it is 6:17 p.m. when I'm recording this and I feel like I've started a whole new day. Like I could just start over and have a whole new day. I don't know. Some people can't nap. I am a professional napper. If napping were an Olympic sport, I would win. I would win the gold medal every time. I'm so good at napping. Long naps, short naps, you name it. It's my thing. So, we have a good show for you today. Jason Larkins, he's awesome. He is the all-star cheer director at American Cheer out in California. He has been an athlete, he's been a coach. Now he serves as not only a director, but he's also a podcaster. So if you have not heard the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, go ahead and put it in the earbuds. He does a good job of bridging that gap of cheer and the rest of the world. And he not only brings in great minds and professionals from the industry, but he talks about what he's doing from his own perspective to communicate what's going on in cheer and what his own experiences are. So it's a fun time. And he came to talk to me, and we talk about one, how he's dealing with everything going on in cheer and all of the news that has come out and how he's communicated that not only to his parents but to his athletes as well. And I think he does a really good job of talking about those discussions and how he's dealing with all of the storm that cheer is going through right now. We also talk about the idea of communication between coaches and parents. Raise your hand if you love it when an extra practice gets thrown on the calendar that wasn't previously scheduled last minute. And if anyone is raising your hand, please email me, please call me because I want to know why. No, Jason gives us some really good perspective on why that is and how we as parents and coaches can communicate better. Jason has some thoughts on that. And you guys, we made the top 100 podcast list in sports in the US. I still cannot believe it. I feel like I need a glass of champagne in my hand. Toast to you. Thank you. Now, we did fall off a little bit last week, so it really does help when you listen, when you share, when you leave reviews. Those things matter. So, thank you, first of all, for putting me on the top 100, for putting us all together as a community in the top 100 podcast. Like, I'm over here just like hanging out with Colin Cowherd. What? So, again, like, share, leave your reviews, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. It means the world. Want to give a shout out to today's podcast sponsors, Prodigy Cheer apparel. If you are watching on YouTube, and I hope you are because I put on new lipstick just for this, Prodigy Cheer apparel. I'm wearing one of their shirts. You know how sometimes like sports apparel, especially cheer mom apparel, can be like tight and it's not true to size and it's uncomfortable? These guys do it right. I actually like wearing these shirts just in every day, and they're not at all uncomfortable. In fact, their shirts are becoming some of my favorite shirts. So check them out. They do custom cheer apparel. They do cheer mom wear. This one is actually ready to go in their swag shop. So check out prodigycheerapparel.com. And then if you are looking for something new and different, check out the cheer collection. It has bracelets and necklaces and rings, all with inspirational quotes related to cheer, like hit zero and 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and some new releases that have just dropped. If you were listening to this week, you will see a new release this week. I'm so excited. So we got new quotes coming regularly. It's a great gift for the holidays. If it's something for your athlete, for your coaches, people are always looking for end of season gifts for high school. There's something for everyone. Check out thecheercollection.com. Okay, now it's time to get into the conversation with my friend, Jason Larkins.
All the moms in the world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
Jason, I've been on your podcast, and now you're on my podcast, so we are officially friends now.
We are. It's what
Welcome.
we call in the biz a collab.
It is a collab. Look at us,
There you go.
influencers that we are. We're
Yeah.
collabing. Your listeners are so sweet. I was on your podcast at the time that we're recording this. It was just last Tuesday, and we had a great time. I listened back and I was like, oh, this was a great conversation. But your listeners are so sweet. They were messaging me and saying, I was hoping you would be on this podcast, and I'm hoping that he'll be on yours. So
Here we
welcome.
go.
I mean,
Let's
everybody,
make it happen.
we made it happen for you, the people.
Yeah, and someone else, someone had messaged me too, and was like, a couple people had messaged me. Someone messaged me on Instagram, like, oh my gosh, so glad that this has happened. And then I think you saw the post that was on TikTok. Oh, I listened to both of you guys. This is happening. Like, yeah, this is super cool. So it's happening again, people.
Like, we're both married, but people are like playing matchmaker. Like, it's happening. We finally got the two of you together.
There we go. So let's make it happen. Yeah, we're gonna have a great conversation. We had a great conversation last time. We're having a great conversation this time. So let's make it happen. Where are we starting at today?
We're doing it. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into cheer. Now you're the director of American Cheer, and you've been coaching a long time. You've been involved. So where did it all start for you?
It all started, my sister was a cheerleader growing up. My sister's 2 years younger than me. And when I started playing football in the first grade, my mom literally like forged her birth certificate so she could cheer for my football team, right? Because she wasn't old enough to actually cheer on the sidelines yet. So my sister and I started when I was in the first grade, and she cheered. I played football first to 12th grade, and she cheered that entire time. So I was like always a part of like a cheer family. Eventually she started doing all-stars, and we're going to competitions and stuff and do that whole thing. So I was used to going to competitions and just being a part of a cheer family. And when I was in the 10th grade, my cousin moved out to California where I live. And my cousin moved out to California from New Jersey. And he knew how to do a round off tuck, right? He had taught himself how to do like a backflip, like in the streets of Jersey, right? And so he one day does it in the backyard for my mom. Like, we never believed that he could do a backflip. We just thought he was just talking because my sister could tumble. And yeah, so he does this back tuck in the backyard one day, and my mom's like super surprised, like, oh my gosh, he can actually tumble. And she says, hey, if I sign you up for tumbling classes, would you take them? And he's like, only if my cousin takes them with me. And I'm like, tumbling? Man, that sounds like a gateway drug to cheerleading, man. And I want nothing to do with cheerleading.
It for sure is a gateway drug to cheerleading.
Yeah. So we end up going to the local gym, and we were tumbling at the local gym, but my sister was cheering at a gym called Champion Outlaws. So, which was like an hour away from our house. So we're tumbling at the local gym, and the coach for the tumbling program was also the coach of the cheerleading program too. And we're getting okay, and I eventually get like a round off tuck and like a right standing handspring, that like real basic stuff. And he's like, "Hey, we're gonna have a co-ed team next year. Do you guys want to come out and try out the clinic?" We're like, you know, well, actually, I don't say awesome. My cousin's like, only if my cousin does it with me. And I'm like, oh man, like I really don't have
That
anything to
peer
do with cheerleading,
pressure.
man. Yeah. And it's not like my cousin, it's not like you would point my cousin out and be like, oh, that guy, he's a cheerleader. Like my cousin was street. Like he was street. That's why he was living with us in California, right? Like you're like, what was it, Will Smith,
Will
Fresh
Smith.
Prince of Bel-Air? Right? That's exactly what it was. It's like, no,
Exactly.
no, no. You're gonna get too much trouble. You need to come move with your aunt and uncle, in
In
Bel Air. So
Bakersfield.
yeah. So he comes out and he's like, yeah, let's try it out. I'm like, okay, cool, man. So we go, and the coach is like, yeah, there's gonna be girls, there's gonna be pizza. And you're like, oh, girls and pizza. Well, I guess.
I
Let's
guess.
go try it out. So we go and we, hang out with the girls, eat our pizza. And he's like, hey, you guys made the team. We're like, man, I didn't even know I was trying out.
I was just eating
So
pizza.
yeah, since that moment, I've never stopped cheering. I eventually started cheering for Champion Out Loud. My mom was like, hey, if you're going to be a cheerleader, like if you're actually going to cheer, then you need to be at the same gym as your sister. So we ended up switching to Champion Outlaws, which is now, after a few mergers, Champion Outlaws is Cheer for San Diego. So if you know Cheer for San
Oh,
Diego,
okay, yeah.
then that is like our gym. And yeah, so I cheered for Champion Outlaws. Then long story that I can get into if you want me to, but I eventually cheered for California All Stars as well. And then cheered in college. I cheered at Palomar College, it's a little community college in San Diego. And then I transferred to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas.
Which
And
fun fact, my husband went to SFA and my daughter was
let's
born in
go.
Nacogdoches.
Shut up.
Yes, my cheerleader
What?
was born in Nacogdoches, Texas. I can show you a birth certificate.
That is crazy. That's nuts. Yeah, man. Every time I say Nacogdoches, people are like,
You're like,
what?
what?
What'd you just say?
So speaking of boys in cheer, why do you think it's so hard to get boys to do all-star cheer?
Stereotypes. I think that's got to be the number one answer, right? Stereotypes got to be the number one. Um, you know, it does not come easy being a boy, especially in high school, right? When I started I'm telling you, my junior year, no one knew I was a cheerleader, right? I was like, yo,
Interesting.
no one don't tell a soul I'm a cheerleader, right? And I kept that under wraps for a long time. And yeah, I think it's just stereotypes, and high school's rough. You know how, social life is
Yeah.
currency. And yeah.
I think it's just too bad because cheer comes or seems to come so easy to you guys. And we need you because you're so strong and tumbling. Like you guys have the upper and the lower body strength that most girls will never have. And it's just a shame. It's just so much wasted
Yeah.
talent on things like football and baseball. Come on, guys.
America's pastimes.
Yeah. Hey, cheerleading is America's pastime.
I would say it's the most, nothing is more American than cheerleading, right?
Amen. God bless America.
Yeah.
We salute.
Every
There
little
is
girl wants
nothing
to be a
more
cheerleader.
American than cheerleading. Yeah. Okay, so you are now the director of an all-star cheer gym.
Hmm.
Tell me what that's like and what kind of your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, I'm the cheer director at American Cheer, AKSC.com. Um, it's like my
Nice
gang name.
plug.
Yeah, nice plug.
AKSC.com.
Yeah, it's like anyone's gonna. Oh my gosh,
I
I've
gotta
been
move to
waiting to find
California.
out. Yeah, I'm going. I know the website now.
No, you gotta plug it whenever you can.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm the director. This is year number 7, and what's my life like? So let's start here. We're a multi-sport facility, and each program has a program director who essentially runs as like the owner of, that
Mhm.
portion of the business. So most of my job duties that I have, well, most of the job duties that a typical owner would have, a lot of those things fall into my lap. There's things that I don't have to take care of that, the typical owner does have to take care of. Like, I don't pay the rent on the building, or if the toilet gets clogged, it's not me who finds the janitor or whatever. So, but there's lots of things that a typical owner does, like I take care of, right? So, our owner does not know our competition schedule. He doesn't know who does our music or who we're bringing in for choreography. So my day to day is, it's an office job with a little bit of cheerleading on the side, and
Mm.
that's the truth. So, I spend most of my time trying to, one, answering emails from parents is probably, I spend a lot of time answering emails from parents and just trying to get that out to them. And then just coming up with different, marketing things and, payroll and all those just business, running the business. And then I get to coach cheerleading in the evenings and, actually have a little, fun with my day. Right. So, but most of my job is just, I really feel like the combination of my job is getting kids into the gym and then training our coaches to be the very best coaches that they can be. And then obviously coaching the athletes to be the very best that they can be, and communicating with our parents about, what the next step is in the program and all those good things.
This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by Prodigy Cheer Apparel. You guys, I have to tell you about the shirts that I got from Prodigy Cheer Apparel's new swag store. I know that us moms, we like to feel cool and comfortable and stylish, and these Cheer Mom designs do not disappoint. I especially love the look of their neon mom shirt, and the fit is spot on. So check out all the designs at prodigycheerapparel.com and just search for the swag store. Holiday shopping season is right around the corner, and what better way to show your coach, your athlete, how much you appreciate them than by getting them a piece from the Cheer collection. Hey, you can even get a little something for yourself here too. The Cheer collection is inspirational style for every cheer enthusiast. It's beautiful, minimal jewelry that has inspirational quotes that are specific to cheerleading, like hit 0 and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Visit thecheercollection.com and enter coupon code CHEERMOMPOD for 10% off of your order.
Yeah, highly administrative. I imagine that your phone rings a lot, especially certain times of year, get lots of questions.
Hmm.
But speaking
All day
of
long.
yeah, speaking of communicating to parents, and I don't mean to bring it down or cast a shadow, but we have to talk about what's going on in all-star cheerleading, especially right now, and with
Hmm.
the rock star cheer allegations. It's just been a whirlwind, and I called it like an avalanche of lawsuits and
Hmm.
allegations that has really rocked the cheer world. And I'm curious how you guys have responded to that, how you are communicating with your teen parents about that.
Fortunate that that so much has happened, and but fortunate that hopefully more brave young athletes or older adults by this time are going to step up and actually say something so that we can, purge the industry of just this filth, right? It's just
Mhm.
despicable filthiness that's been happening in the industry. And one thing I do want to clarify is this is not just a cheer problem. Wherever there are people, there are creeps out there, right? And
Yeah.
so it's, I'm gonna take my kid. I see so many posts that go, "That's why I took my kid out of cheerleading." And if you're saying I took my daughter out of cheerleading and put her in swim, I don't think that swim is any better. I took my
Right.
daughter out of swim, or took her out of cheerleading and put her in soccer. I don't think that soccer is any better. I remember when this happened with USA Gymnastics. We were having a meeting at the gym and with all the directors, right? So we have our directors meetings and we're talking about just this happening with USA. And he said, and this is going to have, our owner said, and everyone's going to have their time when they're in the negative light. And he said, And I remember him looking and he's like, "Cheer, I'm surprised that your time hasn't come," right? And this was, however long ago that go,
Mhm.
however long ago that was, 3 years ago or so. He's like, "I'm surprised that you guys haven't been in the light because we know that these things are happening and they're happening in
Mhm.
every industry across the board." So, what
Mhm.
have we done? So I've communicated with our parents and with our athletes. So, and I just started a Facebook Live and said, "Hey guys, some of you guys know, some of you guys are really plugged in. You're really hardcore all-star cheerleader moms, and or dads, and you know exactly like what's going on in the industry right now. Some of you guys are brand new to cheerleading or don't really know cheerleading outside of our four walls, but letting you know, this happened, and these are some things that we are doing in our gym so that we don't put ourselves in that position, and so that you and your athletes don't put themselves in a compromising position." So I talked about just different things that we do not to put ourselves in that position and different things that they can do not to put themselves in those positions. And then I talked with our athletes and I talked to each team. I talked to all of our all sorry, as of this recording, I talked to all of our all star elite teams. I haven't talked to our prep teams yet. But I sat the girls down. We have boys on the other teams. But I sat the girls down and just talked to them about everything that's going on and really tried to one empower them to let them know that they have the right to be safe, and if something has happened or something ever does happen, that they absolutely have the power and the authority and the right to speak up and say something, right? So I don't want
Mhm.
them to feel, you hear so many times that the survivors are scared to actually speak up, and so they
Mhm.
hold it with them forever, right? And I wanted to make sure that they knew absolutely without a doubt that they should absolutely tell someone that they shouldn't feel scared. And I said, and I hope to God it's no one ever at American, but even if it's someone at American, you guys speak up and say something, right?
Mhm.
And then I just told them about like different red flags that they should watch out for, and I told them that, with manipulators, it's easy to be manipulated, especially at that age, because you want to
Right.
trust adults. And they can easily skew. They can tell you something
Mhm.
is right when it's wrong. And that's what makes it
Mhm.
manipulation, right? And you don't realize you're being manipulated until later. And
Right.
so I try to go over just like basic red flags. Like, your coaches or any adult figure in your life shouldn't really be going too much past what their relationship with you. If you have a cheer coach, your cheer coach shouldn't really talk to you much more than about cheerleading. It shouldn't get too far outside of cheerleading. You're talking about
Mhm.
cheerleading, but obviously your coaches can ask, "Hey, how's your mom doing? How was
Yeah.
school today?"
How's
Hey,
school? Right.
and those things. But once we start getting, we're getting kind of personal, and hey, what's your favorite color bathing suit? Or, I don't know. Hey, I think it'd be really cool if me and you went to a movie one night, right? And a kid might think those things are kind of innocent, like, oh, it's not that big a deal, but we shouldn't be getting too far away from cheerleading and keep it kind of general, casual
Mhm.
conversations with the athletes. And I would just let them know, like, that's a red flag, and you guys should tell, an adult that you guys trust with this information so that they can take it to the appropriate authorities, and we go on from
Right.
there. So,
Right.
that's what we've done, and I just pray that we can get rid of the creeps in this industry because there's I've seen on one of the mom pages that I do follow. um I see that parents are obviously just done with it, and I do want to let the parents know that the good coaches in the industry are done with it too. They really are, but it's hard to know, how well do you really know someone, and that's the hard part. You never know who they are, right? Like, I don't think there aren't a lot of people who intentionally hire creeps in their gym. They go, "Oh yeah,
Right.
this guy's got, he's
Right.
involved. She's got experience," and they hire them, and you don't really know because this information comes out right when this rock star stuff came out. I remember he passed away. I got a text message said, "This is crazy. What's going on?" I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that he,
Yeah,
he
I
took his life."
posted in my stories. I was like, "Rockstar, my heart is with you. They
Yeah.
lost their owner. They lost their founder."
And then all of a sudden this information comes out, and it's like, man, I just saw him at we were in Nashville. We had senior fours that competed against each other. So I saw him, and we competed against each other in Nashville and at Summit, right? And I remember I went up to him in Nashville, shook his hand. We won, no big deal. But I was like, hey, good job, congratulations. Shook his hand there. And then we went to Summit and we heard that Rockstar had a kid that like they had to stop their routine on their level 2 team. And so we were getting ready to compete with one of our teams. And so I saw him again and I went over to him and was like, hey, I heard you guys had an athlete that fell and like hurt themselves. Just wanted to check to see if that athlete was okay. And he's like, yeah, it was actually my son who fell, but he's doing good. He was standing right next to him. He's like, yeah, he's doing good. He's good, blah, blah. And so we talked for a second, shook his hand, left, right? And to me, normal guy, right? He's not giving off these like red flag creeper vibes, right?
Yeah.
Had zero clue, right? To me, just looking at him right there, decent guy. Now, obviously, he had some other things in the past. That I guess definitely were red flags, but just talking to him as a normal person. So
Mhm.
the point of what I'm saying is, you don't. How well do we really know people? And so that's like the hard part about this whole situation. And so parents stay vigilant about who your athletes are communicating with and stay vigilant. I mean, that's the one thing I kept telling our parents: is stay vigilant on
Yeah.
who your athletes are communicating with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, bravo to you for keeping it in the light and communicating appropriately with uh, your athletes and with your parents and talking about this, because we need to be talking about it if we have hope of making the big changes that need to happen. We need to keep talking about it.
And parents, and this last thing I'll say is coaches are trying to work. I know there's a couple of groups that have gotten together that have talked about like a list of demands that they want to see made in the industry to help prevent from this happening in the future, or at least, and, I don't know, I don't want to say prevent from happening in the future, but I think with the Rockstar situation is that at one point he was suspended, right? But he was still able to go to competitions. The rules are he just wasn't able to be allowed in a warm up room, right? It's the only thing
Mhm.
the USASF really controls is a warm up room. But I remember we had a guy get in trouble at our gym. Again, we're a multi sport facility. He used to like date a girl, or I'm not sure if they were married, but he was on the gymnastics side of our gym. But he used to date a girl for a long time, and she filed a complaint against him, not sexual abuse or anything like that, but like maybe like a domestic abuse thing. But she just filed the case, right? Nothing ever
Mhm.
came to fruition about it, but she filed the case. And I guess USA Gymnastics like said you're revoked and you cannot work in a USAG gym, or that
Mhm.
gym will be revoked as well, right? And so he had to stop
Mhm.
working at our gym, right? And I'm not sure if it ever got resolved. I think the problem with that was he wasn't, at least from my understanding, he was never guilty. But as soon as she made the claim of whatever she made, that
They
what
had to do what they
he
had to
was not
do.
allowed to work. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was not allowed to work in a gym, like at all, or the gym would lose their USAG, you know, credentialing or whatever,
Right.
membership. And if you don't have a membership, you can't go to these competitions, right? So
Mhm.
he was on the streets.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to somebody in the gymnastics world in these last couple of weeks, and we were talking about the all the stuff going on in cheer, and she said, "Yeah, we've since everything went down in USAG, the guidelines are so strict. There is actually a coach who coach a male coach who coaches his daughter, and they
Mm-hmm.
have to be careful about the appearance of him even taking her home in his car
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, because if somebody filed a complaint and didn't know that she was his daughter, the rules are the rules. So
Yeah.
that's interesting too. I think we want to be careful about how we say this, but there is context to some of these things, and I think that my argument is, the USASF and any governing body only has so much reach. Like you said, they can only control what happens in their warm-up room. They can only control which certified personnel they allow near the athletes during official competition time.
Mm-hmm.
But
But for the most part, these things aren't happening at competitions. So I'm not
Correct.
saying that they shouldn't have restrictions on competitions. They absolutely should, but it goes so far beyond what's happening on the mat, whether that's at
Hmm.
competition or at practice. It's happening on social media, it's happening behind closed doors, behind the scenes, not during practice time, not during that the official, when they're on the clock. It's
Hmm.
happening off site, and so it's up to all of us. I think that this is it's easy for us to want to blame one person or one entity or one system. We need to be fixing all of the systems, but this is the
Hmm.
definition to me of this takes a village, right? Like
Yeah.
this is going to take every single person. It's going to take background checks. It's going to take, certain people not in practice area, but it's going to take us watching our kids on social media. It's going to take
Yeah.
gym owners and directors having policies on their coaches. Do you agree? I mean,
A
where are we
hundred
at with?
percent.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And what I've told our coaches is there needs to be a hard line in the sand, guys. A hard line in the sand. And I think that's the big place. Oh, and I talked to our coaches. So I talked to our families. I did tell you I talked to our
Yeah.
coaches. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I talked to our coaches, and it's like, guys, there needs to be a hard line in the sand between you and the athletes. They are your athletes. You guys can coach them, but we do not need to have personal relationships with them. And I looked at our younger coaches, right, like early 20s, 20 years old. And I said, and it's the hardest for you guys because you guys were just on teams with these athletes, and
Yeah.
you remember having a friendship with them. But now it's time to not have these types of relationships with them, and for you to separate yourselves because you can very easily, the lines get blurred, and now you find yourself in a compromised situation. And my guess with most of these people who find themselves in these situations is that it didn't start off when they were 35. It started off when they were 19 years
Hmm.
old coaching the
And they
16-year
see,
old.
right, and they see
Mhm.
themselves in that athlete, and maybe they
Mhm.
they have the same skills, and they relate on a cheer level. Maybe they're both from broken homes, or they have things in common, and so it's easy to make a connection with someone like that.
Mhm. And it's a slippery slope,
Yeah.
and they keep on sliding down, and next thing you know, they're late 20s, whatever age there are, but now there's this huge um gap in age, and we're like, what is going on here, right?
Hmm.
And so for hard lines in the sand between the athletes and the coaches, and know, like, hey, i'm I'm your friend, but this is not a two-way street, right? And so
We have to keep a
you can bring,
professional
yeah,
relationship. Yeah.
for sure. You
Yeah.
can bring your problems to me if you're struggling with this. I would love to listen and give you my advice, but coaches shouldn't be bringing their struggles to their athletes. Oh,
Hmm.
my wife is driving me crazy. It's, whatever the case may be. Um, coaches got to find a different outlet or a different social group to have their personal problems,
Hmm.
with, not with the athletes.
It's almost like an employer employee relationship. They're just
Hmm.
things that you don't lines that you do not cross, and that takes leadership skills, and that takes development, and it's so hard, like you said, because a lot of times athletes will become coaches at 18, 19, 20 years old,
Hmm.
and you have to separate yourself, like you said. So thank you for your thoughts on that.
Of course.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the director parent relationship. And I told you I was
Yep.
going to razz you a little bit. You razzed me, rightfully so. You, if you didn't listen to Jason's podcast, he teased me because there was something that he asked me to be prepared for on the podcast, and I said, "Oh, I wasn't aware I had to do that." And he's like, "It was in the message that I sent you, like right here." Like, typical cheer mom, didn't read her email. Which I always read. Like I'm the one that like always prints out the emails and puts them in a folder and has all the information. So, but anyway,
Oh, real
so
quick, I did your
yeah,
thing. Remember
which
we were
one?
talking about how, like, you won like Starbucks or something, or you wanted to win Starbucks because you
Oh,
read. I did it. I did in the most
yeah,
recent one. I was like, and if you've gotten to this
yes.
part of the email, let me know, and we'll pick a
Yeah,
winner
so
for a
my
clinic, whatever.
director had a lot of information that she had to send in a series of emails, and so she started sneaking in, if you've gotten to this part of the email me back and I will put you in a drawing for a $25 Starbucks gift card. And I think she only did it one time, but that's all that
Hmm.
it took. Was after that I was like scouring every
Yeah.
email for how can I
You're like
win
trying to
Starbucks.
maybe every other word creates like a secret message.
If you can solve the riddle, you win.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about that, because in Cheer Mom's mind, the communication, everyone's like, we need more communication, or there's not good communication. And from talking to you in the director's mind, it's like, read your emails. So let's talk about that. Like, why do you think that is? And you can tease me
Well,
back. It's okay.
there are probably some coaches and directors who are flat out bad communicators. I will give that to parents. They're because one with parents typically skew older than the coaches. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing.
That's
Parents
true.
are typically especially if older parents and younger coaches, parents just need to be organized. They've gotten to this point in their life where if it's not on the calendar, I can't function because I
Mm-hmm.
don't just have this daughter, I have a son who plays baseball, my
Right.
other daughter does ballet, my other son plays football, right? Not to mention the dance recital, I'm trying to live my life and all these different things. So
Mm-hmm.
parents, 22-year-old cheer coach, he's just a 22-year-old cheer coach, right? Like that's his life, right? So he's like, hey, we're gonna practice tomorrow. I don't care what the rest of you guys are doing. We're having practice tomorrow, right? And you're like, yeah, but we all had
Mm.
plans, not planned for practice tomorrow, right? So I think that's one
Thank
thing.
you. Thank you
Is
for
some coaches
noticing that.
are,
Thank you for
yeah,
acknowledging that. Yes.
yes. I've gotten older, right? Because I started off as a young cheer coach without a single young cheer coach with no other responsibilities in my life except for coaching cheerleading, right? And as
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten older, I've realized, oh yeah, like these parents have lives outside of the cheer gym, and so
Mm-hmm.
so one, there are coaches who probably do need to be flat out better communicators. Um, but I do remember saying this. I have told this to our parents before. I know, hey guys, I know I need to be a better communicator at sometimes, but we also got to be better listeners. Like sometimes I send an email and you'll reply back to the email like asking a question that is direct, like already in the email. I just saw this on TikTok the other day. I don't know his name. I went to his profile because he's pretty funny. He had a pretty big following, but I don't get the feeling that it was built up through cheerleading. He has some following for whatever, but it seems like he's like a new cheer dad, like he's an all-star cheer dad. And he said something about the group chat. Like the coach will say, "Hey, we have practice at 4:30." And then the very next message is,
What time
"Hey,
is
what time is
practice?
practice?" Yeah.
I have a
I'm like, that's so true.
spoiler. I have a TikTok in my drafts right now that I'm trying to
There we
finish
go.
about
Dude,
that
that's
very
it.
thing.
Man, that is it. I'm like, are you kidding? So I'm telling you, hey, well, for if you have any coaches that follow you, my thing is, I just, I immediately go, if they're asking a question that was answered in an email, I just direct them back to the email. Oh, you can find that information in the October Liberty Report, right? Because I send out a
Paragraph
monthly
3,
email.
section 2.
Yeah. You can find it here. Hey, where is practice at this weekend? Hey, I just want to make sure you have the updated calendar. Do you have the updated calendar? The answer is either yes or no. Yes, I have the updated calendar. Awesome. You can find it in the calendar. No, I don't have the calendar. Here you go. Make sure you're getting our emails. Make sure you're getting our text messages. Because I can't do that. Especially, you can do that if you are a small micro gym, right? You have 50 kids in your program. It's not that big a deal to go and answer questions back and forth. We have 300 kids in our gym. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot answer
Right.
every single individual's questions on where practice is this weekend. So we put in an email and let you know, hey guys, practice is going to be at this time at this location here and there. So, you know, um
You know.
that's but I think parents, read your emails. That's like my big thing. Parents, read your if you want some tips on things parents can do, to be better parents. I can give you some of those too. But
Okay, I want to go back to something that you said near the beginning is coaches will say because cheerleading is their whole life and they're single and cheer is the only responsibility that they have, and I appreciate your acknowledgement of that. What would be your advice to us, because when that happens, it's usually not in a calm time of year. It's usually very hectic, and we have all these things going on, and cheer is ramping up, and maybe we're in travel season, and they're like, hey, we need extra practice. We're going to do it tomorrow.
mhm,
And we cheer parents are exhausted and have 1,000 things going on. And our reaction, and maybe you can attest to this 9 times out of 10, is who the heck do you think you are?
mhm,
This is not the only thing I have going on. And I mean, our first reaction on the phone, like, if you had kids, coach, you would understand. I cannot do this. My daughter will not be there. And that's where we get some tension between
mhm.
coaches and parents. I'm sure you've never seen that happen at your gym, so I'm not calling
Right?
out any of your parents or coaches, I'm sure. But hypothetically, what would your advice be to parents on kind of how to deal with that situation?
So I'm trying to think, does the parent go to practice? Do they see the team's a hot mess? Right. If you see that the team's a hot mess, it's like, yo, we might need to skip the barbecue. Cause they go out and
True.
compete this weekend. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, they have some buy-in.
yeah, and it's hard because I do side. My thing is, I honestly mostly side with parents on this. And I'm not, and I would, and I do lots of coaches conferences and clinics and coaches trainings. So this is the type of stuff I would tell the coaches. Guys, you can't just schedule last minute practices. Like one mom emailed me and said, I don't see a reason why you can't just plan all of these at the beginning of the season. And I was like, oh, that's a thought. Um, and so now this is just me. We send out our yearly calendar. Like in August, once we get to, I send a summer calendar. Here's all the dates, all the practices, all the choreography that you're going to need from now until August. When we get to August, I go, this is the calendar for the rest of the season. Every choreography session, every extra choreography session is already planned. Every extra practice is already planned. Obviously it has the competition schedule. Everything is already planned on that thing. Now, obviously things come up where we go, man, we need to do this.
Or Susie
But I
got
always try to
injured
keep
and
in
we have to
mind, yeah,
practice with her replacement. Yeah.
100%. And I
Yeah.
always try to keep in mind that families have a life outside of cheerleading, right? Which is something that I did not realize as a young coach, right? But now parents have a life outside. So I think that's just one thing that coaches need to realize, that parents have a life outside cheerleading. But when a coach does call an extra practice, parents, you guys are paying lots of money to be a part of the cheer gym. And you know, I'm guessing, your rent, mortgage is your most expensive, expense on your bills, probably followed by,
Cheerleading.
your car or cheerleading, right? It's one of those two. Depends on what
That's
car
true.
you have and what
That's true.
what gym you're a part of. It's either your car or cheerleading. And so I think that you should really dedicate if they are calling practice, coaches don't call practice because they want to spend time with the kids. They're calling practice because they need to get things done, right?
Hmm.
And so, again, there was one time when I wasn't that efficient of a time manager. And so I did need those extra practices. And so maybe you don't have a very efficient coach, and that's okay. Coaches grow and they learn and they evolve. But when a coach calls an extra practice, it's because they need an extra practice. So I would I would advise parents to try to understand that, and to, you know, this is expensive. And when they get out on the floor, this is one thing I always think about, is that parents have excuses not to bring their kids to practice, right? And they always have good excuses not to bring their kids to practice. But when the team looks a hot mess, they don't blame it on kids not being at practice. They blame it on the coach, right? And so, oh, the coach doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, this program doesn't know what they're doing. But parents do play a huge part in that, in having their kids at practice.
That's a good point. It is a good point. On the flip side, I really, if you're listening, I want you to be heard on this, because
this is something that I see in Facebook groups that I just that people will email me about, and that's, hey, we couldn't be at this practice that was scheduled at the last minute because, like you said, it was a valid reason. It was a family reunion. It was we had a trip planned out of town, but then the athlete feels like they get the cold shoulder at the next several practices,
Hmm.
whether that's from fellow athletes or from their coaches. So, what advice would you give to parents dealing with that situation where maybe you have a coach or athletes that are sort of blaming your kid for missing that practice?
Yeah, so I think that really comes back to basic communication. Their athlete very well might be getting the cold shoulder because she missed practice, but I wouldn't approach it that way. I would say, hey, this weekend my daughter missed practice. That is a fact. No one can dispute that. And usually you say hi to her right when she comes in the gym, and you seemed a little distracted. And she said that you didn't talk to her the entire practice. I get the sense, right? You tell your story, you tell the facts, things that cannot be disputed. You didn't talk to her. She missed practice. And then you tell your version of the story, what you're painting in your head. And it seems to me, I just get the feeling that you're upset because she missed practice this weekend. Like, how do you see that? Am I missing something? And then give the coach the opportunity to say their side of the story. Because sometimes they just, you know what? I'm so sorry. I was just
Mhm.
having such a bad day. And I didn't really talk to any of the kids that day. Or they'll say, yeah, it's really bothered me that she missed practice. And, and they just might just be, the reality is they might just be immature and they just want to be, they're the 20-year-old coach who's immature, doesn't know how to not hold grudges because a kid missed practice or whatever. But at least you've given the coach the opportunity to tell their side of the
Yeah.
story
You
without
brought it
you
to light, even
attacking
if,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
even if that is the problem, even if they've
Hmm.
made blatant comments like, well, if you wouldn't have missed practice yesterday, you wouldn't have been moved to the back.
Yeah.
You're bringing that, you're bringing that out into the light rather than keeping it in darkness and letting those stories and ideas in your head build and build and build till
Hmm.
you just want to lunge at this coach. Right.
Yeah. For 100%. 100%.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great advice for cheerleading and coaching, and great advice for life. Like, let's bring this out in the open. Let's have the conversation. And I can tell you that as a mom who's been an all-star cheer mom for 10 years, we haven't had a perfect journey with every single coach that my daughter has had. We've had some excellent coaches, and on the whole her experience was fantastic. But there were times when it was like, I don't know what's going on with this coach, or
Hmm.
and I tell parents this all the time. I just went and had a conversation with them. And even if we didn't bring up, hey, I think you have a problem with my daughter. What's your problem with my daughter?
Hmm.
We were able to build relationship. And I think that there are so many times that we miss out on connection and relationship just because we haven't heard that person's heart and like you said, their perspective and their own side of the story, that we can get so much more accomplished and have such a better time if we just hear straight from that person's heart and from their mouth.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been fun. Got some
It's been a
good
blast.
insight. Got some
It's
amazing
been a
insight.
blast.
Thank you, Jason. I really do hope to bump into you this competition season. If you have not heard Jason's podcast, it's the Let's Talk Cheer podcast. You can find it anywhere you get podcasts. You can find it on YouTube as well. Jason, how else can people connect with you?
They can follow me on Instagram, Jason Larkins on IG. I have a small TikTok following, and I post some stuff there too, as well. So that's Jason C. Larkins. And then everywhere. Let's Talk Cheer. You can find that, like you said, anywhere you get your podcast. Chris, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.